who as a result suffered a concussion and a broken jaw. While no penalty was called on the play, the NHL Department of Player Safety will hold a hearing today on the hit. To the NFL, where former San Francisco 49er safety Reid, currently a free agent, has filed a collusion grievance under the collective bargaining agreement against the NFL. Reid will be using the same lawyer who is representing Colin Kaepernick in his collusion case against the league. Reid was the first player to kneel next to Kaepernick during the national anthem. That'll do it for this update. Here's First Take.
All right, so here's the deal. Free agent safety Reid is following suit with Colin Kaepernick with a collusion grievance under the collective bargaining agreement against the NFL. Max, what's your reaction to this?
I think he should. Look, it's difficult to say whether some memo went around or word of mouth got around or there was some, agreement between owners that they weren't going to touch these players. Maybe every single owner in the National Football League has come to the exact same conclusion about Reid and Kaepernick for that matter, but particularly Reid, because Reid is a good, strong safety. It's not like Kaepernick, who is, he's better than some of the quarterbacks who are playing, but usually we're talking about backups. Of the starters, he's probably better than some starters too, but you can debate it. But Reid's a good player, solid play. At worst, you're going to call him a middle-of-the-pack strong safety, meaning he's better than the strong safety on a lot of teams, the starter. So if every single owner is coming to the same conclusion about his not parroting their political speech by standing up for the anthem. And by the way, let's recall how kneeling, the whole thing came about. Kaepernick was just sitting quietly, not making a fuss. The media noticed it, ran with it. It was considered disrespectful by various members of the military, etc., and to compromise, Colin Kaepernick, Nate Boyer is who I was looking for, friend of the show, talked to Kaepernick and decided, hey, maybe kneeling would show respect. So it's not even like Reid's being disrespectful. He's just not parroting the owner's political speech. So if he is drummed out of the league unfairly, not on the merits, but because he's considered a distraction, or more likely because owners want to send a message, and owners haven't colluded, meaning they haven't communicated, like, let's not let this guy back in the league, that really points out we need more diversity among owners. But I find it hard to believe that there's been zero communication and a good, valuable player can't find a job anywhere in the league. Were I him, I would also think it's collusion.
Well, you could think it's collusion, but that doesn't mean it's wise for you to be a part of this grievance. Listen, Reid can ball. Richard Sherman came on the air. I'm sorry, not came on the air, but during his introductory press conference, he said he should have a job. He's one of the top 10 safeties in the league. But think about it. When you talk about collusion, you're accusing the owners of colluding with one another to keep you out of a job. This is a particular situation where I don't think collusion is required. I think it's real easy for the owners to be like-minded without needing to communicate with one another because of the issue that we're talking about here. If you had Colin Kaepernick protesting against the National Football League, and you had, and obviously you would have some owners who agree, some owners who disagree. What makes this so interesting and so touchy is the fact that Colin Kaepernick's protests were never against the NFL. It was against racial injustice, police brutality, and obviously social justice issues. So because of that, the NFL as a group basically sat back and said, okay, what does this have to do with us? Why have you now made this our problem? And as a result, they're exercising their right to say, we allowed this to taint the season that we endured last year. We're not about to let that happen this year. Do I think Reid is a victim? Absolutely. Do I think Colin Kaepernick is a victim? Absolutely. Do I think what's happening to Colin Kaepernick is right? Absolutely not. Why? Because there was no rule in place by the National Football League that prohibited him from kneeling. So if he didn't violate any of your rules, any of your bylaws, to me, you don't have a right to do this to him. I get all of that. But the flip side is that they're going to sit up there and say, it's not about his rights. It's about our right not to compromise our bottom line. And the more you are dogged in your willingness to do this and potentially compromise our bottom line, we're going to sit up there and go about the business of trying to protect our bottom line.
You bring up an interesting
point. So if you're Eric
point.
Reid and you want a job in the NFL, your point has already been made. People like me, you, and others throughout the media, throughout the country, fans alike and beyond, have now taken the issue, but taken the bull by the horn. Why continue to do that? It's counterproductive.
You bring up a good point about he's not violating your rules. In other words, it's not compulsory that you stand. But if here's like a philosophical question that may not actually play into this case legally. I don't know. I suspect not.
Right.
But even if the owners aren't communicating, what do you call it when they put in a de facto rule by force? You have to stand for the anthem, parrot their political speech, because if they're saying by not standing you're making a statement, then they're saying also by standing you're making a statement.
Let me answer you.
Hold on, I haven't asked the question yet. But by saying you're standing, you're also making a statement, meaning it's their statement, meaning you have to say what we say politically. I believe that the players are protected from doing that. But the question is, if it's in protection of their bottom line, Stephen A., how is that different than what was happening in the South during the civil rights movement in the 60s, when people of color were not being served in small businesses, and small business owners could say, hey, and small business owners could say, hey, I'm not colluding with anyone. I just know I'm not racist myself, they could even claim. I just know that if I do serve people of color, it'll hurt my business. How is it different?
Well, first of all, you did ask the question. Then you answered it. Then you came back and asked it again.
Stephen A., I was developing a point that you weren't allowing me to finish.
But you're developing a point and you're going on and on, but you want an answer from me. But now I'm limited in the time that I can give you the answer. All I'm saying to you is this. You keep bringing up the South, and what I'm trying to say to you is it wasn't their issue. Civil rights and the issues that we were fighting for back in the day, you're talking about human rights and civil rights being violated. They were employed by an NFL team. They were in the NFL. They were making millions. And then they engaged in actions that ultimately compromised the bottom line of the league. If you have done that, I'm not saying that I would do it if I was an NFL owner. I'm not even saying that they're righteous, because they're clearly not. But if their concern is their bottom line, and they're unapologetic about it, and they believe they have proof, that their bottom line has been compromised, what are they supposed to do?
Obviously, it's an analogy, and clearly being employed for millions of dollars or for whatever amount of money is very different than what was happening in the civil rights movement. What I'm saying is, how is the argument by a business owner that an employee is an employee by following our rules? He hasn't violated any rules, but we believe socially, culturally, the climate is such that it affects our bottom line that we won't touch him, not on the merits of his production, but because we have belief that we have proof, or maybe not, it's just our intuition, that it's affecting our bottom line. How is that different than once upon a time people saying we are not going to follow the rules because we believe it affects our bottom line?
Let me answer that. Let me answer that by giving you a reverse analogy. Max, if I'm at a restaurant, if there's a restaurant and I'm a white owner of a restaurant in the 50s, you're black, you're not allowed to patronize my restaurant, period. That's entirely different than blacks being employed and blacks patronizing a restaurant. And then all of a sudden there's a particular group that they don't want patronizing their product because it compromises their bottom line.
The argument is, though, it hurts our bottom line.
You guys, this conversation is getting really good. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back to this and also potentially get into Kawhi Leonard as well. Keep it here. First Take.
This spring, no matter where